Hello, this is Charlie from Lewis Razors. When I'm not in the shop making razors, I'm listening to Moustache and Blade.
Welcome to the Moustache and Blade podcast, a show dedicated to all things facial fur and traditional wet shaving in an effort to create global facial awareness. And now, here are your hosts, Douglas Smythe and Ryan Stephen Green.
This is a very excited Douglas Smythe, and with him, as always, an equally excited
RSG, Ryan Stephen Green. That's me.
And today's show is brought to you by HowToGrowMustacheStore.com, where you can find Synergy shaving soap as well as many other wet shaving and facial fur accessories. Check us out today, folks. That's HowToGrowMustacheStore.com. And thanks for your support. Welcome back, folks, to episode number 30. That's right. We've made it this far. And what an episode we have for you today. We have Brett McKay of The Art of Manliness here with us. And we are very excited about this, as you could probably imagine. And how do you feel about that, Ryan?
Brett is about to drop some knowledge bombs on y'all's. A very intelligent guy with important, meaningful things to say. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this interview.
Yes, this is a really, it's like sitting at the bar with some of your most intelligent friends. It's really it took me back to college. You've been a little distant lately, Ryan. I mean, what's been going on in your life? It was really tough to pull not only Brett into this interview today, but I've been chasing you around all week too. What's going on?
Chasing me around, man. Life is busy for me right now. Work is going, like I've said it over and over. I direct commercials, I direct feature films. Well, the commercials are boiling hot right now. But in addition to that, my feature, Circle the Wagon, is about to be birthed to the world.
Right. It's dropping.
It is dropping. Matter of fact, we are going to do a special Circle the Wagon episode.
Oh, that's right.
Next week. Right, Doug?
I'm sorry. We have all these interviews circling in my mind right now. But yes, we will have Dave and Charlie and you in the studio. Once again, I say studio in quotes, doing a little, I guess we're going to do a pre-dropping of the film interview and promotion and just talk about the film.
And, a little cross promotion of the film. Yeah. So we have a lot of events coming up actually. In the first week of June, where we have a number of screenings taking place in Southern California. We're starting to sell DVDs on our website. It's kind of a pre-sale because the actual DVD release date isn't until the first week of August, I believe. And then in July, we're getting released on Hulu and Amazon and all,
nice.
all of the VOD and digital platforms in the universe. So it's going to be an eventful couple months here for Circle the Wagon. I'm really excited about it.
It's going to be a great summer. I just rewatched that movie. Unlike the rest of the world, I have access to that movie, and I'm trying to work it into my everyday quotes that I use, usually from The Big Lebowski or something. But now it's Circle the Wagon. I'm trying to drop some of those. So this is my third time watching the film, and as I see something new every time, let's just say that, and I learn a little bit more about myself.
So early in our relationship,
yes,
Doug did the interview with me about between the upper lip and nasal passageway. And then Doug asked, "Hey, you have this feature film, Circle the Wagon. Could I see it?" And I think what I said at that time is,
"No,
yeah, hey, how about I'll let you see it early if you write a review." And Doug's like, "I write reviews about like soaps and brushes and stuff." And I was like, "Oh yeah." But I guess we both thought it would be kind of cool anyway. So Doug wrote a review about Circle the Wagon. That's hilarious. And I actually extracted one of the quotes from Doug's review, and I put it on our poster for promotional purposes. It's like amazing, outstanding, 2 thumbs up. Those kind of quotes. Doug had a real doozy of a quote. I think he called it a Sisyphean romp down Route 66. So we totally used that. We appropriated Doug's quote.
Nice. I don't remember exactly what I said, and I can't see it. The little clip you sent me, I can't see it. It's low resolution, but I feel honored, and I'm very flattered that you're using that. That's awesome.
And I'm very honored and flattered that Doug would allow me to use this platform of Moustache and Blade to promote my film. I think you guys are going to like it a lot, and obviously you hear me mention Volkswagens and Circle the Wagon from time to time. So, hopefully the film itself will be worth waiting for, and very soon it'll be widely available. So you'll all be able to see it as well.
Yeah. And with that in mind, I just want to say that I don't know if all of you have noticed this, but Ryan seems to work a Volkswagen reference into every episode I think we've ever had. And now we're really intentionally trying to work that into all our interviews. So you as the listeners will know this little game we're playing with the different people we interview. But and hopefully none of our future guests are listening to this right now, but there will be a Volkswagen question somewhere, stuck in there somewhere. Yeah, so we got that going on. So I guess with that said, if anyone out there would like to ever get a hold of us, being Ryan or myself, you can reach me at douglas@mustacheandblade.com or ryan@mustacheandblade.com. And if you'd like to call either myself or Ryan, you can call 347-333-1511. If you are outside of the United States, please dial 001 first, giving you 001-347-333-1511. And lastly, I just want to say, if you want to help us in getting the word out there, please go to mustacheandblade.com, which will bring you to a pre-populated tweet. All you have to do is hit send, and that aids us, again, in getting the word out there that you are listening to your favorite podcast, Moustache and Blade.
Tweet it up.
Another thing I might want to mention is that we've just recently started, well, it's been a few months now, but the How to Grow Mustache Google Plus community. For any of you interested in joining the How to Grow Mustache Google Plus community, please go to howtogrowmustachegplus.com. That's howtogrowmustachegplus.com, where you can, hang out, shoot the breeze with us, post some shaves of the day, check out some of the great content that all of our other members are posting, participate in pass-arounds or giveaways that always seem to be going on there. So once again, that's howtogrowmustachegplus.com. Check that out today, folks. And thanks for listening. And now,
on with the show.
And welcome back to another quick wet shaving tip with your pal, Douglas Smythe from howtogrowmustache.com. How's everyone doing today? Well, folks, after an influx of letters and emails on, now get this, facial fur dye. That's right, dyeing your facial fur. Be it your mustache, goatee, Van Dyke, or even beard. Not that there's anyone out there with a beard listening to our show, but in a chance that there is, this is for you, buddy. So I'm approaching this tutorial in much the same fashion or spirit as my Home Depot outfit tutorial that some of you may remember from a previous episode. I believe it's episode 24 or 25. Yes, so for those caught up, you know exactly which show I speak of. And this will be, unlike that one, a 3-part series. So over the course of the next, 3 weeks, we will travel through my trials and tribulations experimenting with facial fur dye. So without any further ado, let's get into this. Sweet vanity, how we all at some level succumb to thee. I love my mustache, and I'm assuming you do as well since you are, listening to this. That is your own mustache and not mine. Unless this is Troy. If this is Troy, back off already. Is a restraining order not obvious enough about how I feel for your unrequited adoration of my mustache? The Facebook fan page was the last straw. See what I have to deal with? Yes, facial hair. No matter how well you treat your fur, conditioning, oiling, and mollycoddling even, sadly, it will inevitably betray you. One day you will wake up and look into the ever-truthful mirror mounted on the ceiling above your bed and spot that mocking white whisker, erect as a middle finger and wagging like a tongue. You will then hear its childlike voice in your inner ear. Na 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 na. Damn, is all you will come back with. Hardly a clever retort. Or even worse, your current girlfriend, who you are easily 10 years her senior, will spot it first. It's actually blonde, you will tell her in a scolding tone. Then excuse yourself as you retreat to the bathroom in a calm, calculated fashion of faux non-concern, which is as transparent as the whisker you are about to dispatch with tweezers. Glaring into the shaving mirror, you mumble to yourself, Ave Caesar, moratori te salatant. This may drive most aging, dare I say, hepcats to shave, but not you, for you realize this is a bad idea, and you will lose friends and lovers. Here is where my sad tale of woe begins. Allow me to slip now into my lab coat and drop a little science in your lap. I promise it will be brief and conveyed in layman's terms, which I speak rather fluently. The hair that makes up your beard, mustache, and everywhere else on your body is comprised of 2 key components, The first is the shaft, which is what we see, style, and sometimes playfully nickname. The second part is the follicle, which lies beneath the surface of the skin and resembles a white bulb. The follicle contains melanin. The very same stuff that lends pigment to our skin also fills the shaft, giving color to the hair. As time passes, the follicle becomes lazy and produces less and less melanin until eventually, well, nada. The filament is now empty, and empty it shall remain, which gives us that white or gray whisker, which some of us take as an indicator species, telling us it's time to buy a motorcycle. Or the more sober of us, it's time to die. And that's die, D-Y-E. Now let me take this lab coat off. Going to the store and actually purchasing beard dye is a lot like the first time you dared to buy a pack of condoms or a dirty magazine for your buddy. You try to camouflage the purchase with contrasting items in vain hope of distracting the cashier, who could easily be your sweet little old grandmother. The idea is to send the non-verbal message. I was just in here for a pack of number 2 pencils, AAA batteries, and a random impulse buy of Animal Action Quarterly. Or, gee, I was only in here for some Butterfingers and a Slurpee, but hell, I need to pick up a gag gift for a pal. Throw in a pack of Stubby Boy condoms too. Har har har. A nervous cold sweat breaks under your lanky adolescent arms and down your back as your voice cracks on the last har. So here it is, I find myself again, now in my mid-30s. Damn. I look at my soon-to-be purchases laid down on the counter between me and the 19-year-old college girl now working behind the register. What happened to Grandma? Item number 1, a copy of The New Yorker. Obviously, I'm a man of the world, culturally up-to-date, and an avid listener and supporter of NPR. Item number 2, a crisp copy of the new Rolling Stone. Though sophisticated I may be, I am obviously still hip and possibly a post-grad student of the liberal arts. Item number 3, a pack of Dentine. There was actually no forethought for this one. I'm just naturally a sucker for strategic product placement and shiny things. And lastly, item number 4, a box of Just for Men, standing on its side, UPC conveniently facing up for scanning ease. I stand on the balls of my feet, slightly rocking, shielding the box of Just for Men from the people behind me with my body. I stare at the closest thing to me and try to look engrossed in it. This so happened to be the most recent copy of Women's Day magazine. Damn. The transaction is going rather smoothly and I can feel the color coming back to my face. Until she gets to the box of Just for Men. She wears a confused look on her face. Obviously she is baffled that a strapping young man such as myself is buying this. Must be for his dear old dad, I'm sure she's thinking. Turning the box over and over in her hands, she begins reaching for the phone. Oh God, I know what's coming next. I start sweating and stage whispering, $7.99. It's $7.99. The tag said $7.99. To my utter chagrin and amazement, she starts transmitting over the store intercom system.
Price check on Just for Men, light medium brown. Price check on just.
My heart stops, and I may have even peed myself a little. I can feel the college-aged people behind me burning a hole through my probably graying back hair with their eyes. Before my mind shuts down and curls into the fetal position, I eye her name tag and read it out loud. Susan! I shan't forget you. To be continued next week in part 2 of Coloring Your Beard or Mustache. Ready to Die. Thanks for joining us, people. And now, on with our show.
Hello, men. As you know, we get emails. This one comes to us from Jonathan. Jonathan writes, "Hi guys, I'm a huge fan of the podcast and of Synergy soaps. I finished up last week's podcast with the intentions of sending this email sooner, but I kept forgetting to send it. Well, I'm glad you did anyway, Jonathan. I heard the snippet of the email from the listener who basically was pinning vanity on Shave of the Day pics, and it made me think, so why do I like them so much? Well, here's my response to that question. I like them for the offering to see what everyone else is using, but one of my main reasons is to see all of the beautiful razors and brushes out there. We live in a world of molded, cookie-cutter blobs of items. Everything from cartridge razors to appliances to industrial items, and even some architecture and vehicles seem to be stamped out of the same bland mold of disposability for the most part. This brings me to why I like the Shave of the Day picks. As a person who uses vintage DE and straight razors, I absolutely love the beauty that lies in the form, colors, and textures of them. These are items that were built to last and with inherent beauty. Then there is the history behind each one. Oh, if they could only tell their stories. That being said, I must say that I'm also one who loves antiques for the same reasons. Old cars, gas pumps, and even items like refrigerators were stylish back in time. I think Ryan may have hinted on the parts of this just briefly during another part of the conversation when talking about his chair. For my eyes, Shave of the Day picks, especially for vintage razors, are almost a fine art statement in some ways, and these posts are a way of being able to see and enjoy the diverse beauty in each of these survivors. Anyway, just wanted to share my opinion. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some Shave of the Day razor porn to catch up on over at Straight Razor Place. Smiley face. Jonathan. Jonathan, I don't know what to add to what you just said. That was beautiful, man. I really appreciate your sharing your sentiment with us. Yeah, as you know, we are lovers of history and antiquities here at Moustache and Blade. Very glad to know that we have a kindred spirit in you, my friend. And it is a dang shame that there is this disposability thing. There is this planned obsolescence, built into modern products. And it's a shame on a number of levels, but the prime one to me, I think, is that it's motivated by greed. It's so that we can make more money and please our investors and all that stuff. And I guess I get that. It's just the person who suffers is the consumer. But here's the thing, Jonathan, and anybody else who's listening to this, we vote with our purchases. If we are purchasing disposability, we are encouraging this system. We are helping to perpetuate it. When we buy a vintage razor or straight razor or DE razor, we are saying, hey, look at what was made before. It's still as good as it was when it was new, and we're not participating in this disposability, planned obsolescence bullpucky that's going on here. And so, Jonathan, kudos to you for casting your vote for things that last, things of beauty, and things that bring you joy when you use them. Thank you for spreading that message, and thank you for listening. On with the show!
And now we are very pleased to welcome aboard Mr. Brett McKay, co-founder with his wife, Kate, of The Art of Manliness. Welcome aboard, Brett. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me. Doing great.
Really great to have you here. We've been trying our darndest to get you for the last, it seems like 6 months.
Yeah. It's tough. I've had to make myself a little more scarce because just so busy and lots of people want me on their podcast or doing something.
No, I'm sure. Well, I'm glad we managed to pull this off. So, for our listeners out there that don't, and I doubt there's anyone that really doesn't know who or what the Art of Manliness is, Brett, can you just give us a breakdown or a little bio about who you are and what you do and what it's all about?
Yeah, so I started the Art of Manliness in 2008 while I was a second-year law student. And it just started out more of just, the reason I started it was I was tired of the men's magazines that were out there. I was tired of reading about six-pack abs. I was tired of reading about, babe of the month and what some, very attractive celebrity found attractive in a man. I mean, I was like, this is pointless. I'm married. And two, why would I care what some celebrity, what she finds attractive? I'm not going to meet her ever. This isn't useful information. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just start the men's magazine. I always wanted to read. I'd been blogging a little bit before then. So I just bought the domain name, fired up WordPress, and started just writing about stuff that I would want to see in a magazine. And what I found was that a lot of other men felt the same way as I did. They too were just tired of the lifestyle content put out there for them. And they liked what I was doing. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. So it took off, and here we are now 6 years later, and we're 15 million page views a month, a really big, passionate following on all over the internet, and written 2 books based off of the website. It's what I do full time now. I didn't take the bar exam when I graduated law school, thankfully.
What?
Yeah.
So the law thing fell by the wayside, huh?
Yeah, it totally fell. I mean, it wasn't the plan either. Like this whole Art of Manliness thing is one big happy accident. The plan, the plan since I was a high school senior was I'm going to be an attorney, live in the suburbs, yada yada, and got to law school, and I was good at law school. I really enjoyed it, and but when I started interning, actually practicing law, I was like, man, this sucks. It didn't. It was just I got my first case of chronic heartburn when I was in law school and working at these big firms here in town. And so, yeah, in 2009, we were eking out just enough where I was like, this could be like a viable option to support my wife and I. And so I just decided to do it, go for it, and never look back. So
Congratulations.
Thanks.
It seems so hard to believe because, I mean, everyone knows the art of manliness now. I mean,
it's really weird. Like, a lot of people don't know that I'm in Tulsa. And so sometimes when I'm around in Tulsa, like I'll have people come up to me and be like, you're the art of manliness guy. I know what it is. It's the mustache. If I didn't have the mustache, like, I don't think people would even like know who I am, because it's such a, I mean, like you all have facial. There's a show about mustaches. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, people like, they'll point to me like, it's the mustache. You're the art of manliness guy. I'm like, yeah. Like there's this one funny story. I was driving and I had like my aviator shades on. I had the windows rolled down, mustache. And like this cop pulled up next to me, Tulsa police officer. And he was like, excuse me. And I was like, you know, like you always get nervous, like when the cops talk to you, even though you're not doing anything wrong.
Oh yeah, sure.
Maybe you are. So you're paranoid. And he's like, hey, you're the art of manliness guy. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, I love your blog. And I was like, oh, thanks, officer.
It's a get out of jail free card.
I was going to give you a ticket for speeding, but since you're the art of manliness guy, I'll just let you go with the warning this time.
Maybe you can give me a ticket.
Keep up the good work.
Good mustache.
Did he have a mustache?
He did not. He was.
What kind of cop is that?
He was a disgrace to cophood.
I wonder how. So, I mean, law to art of manliness, large jump. I'm wondering, you know, maybe what are the top 3 similarities between the two fields, and what are the top 3 differences?
Oh man, I don't think there's any similarities at all. I mean, I guess the similarities would be this: like, it's long hours. What I'm doing. I mean, you work long hours as a lawyer, but you also work long hours when you're an independent business owner.
Amen.
So there's that, but like you enjoy it more, right? You're your own boss, and you whenever you work those long hours, you're like, well, I'm doing this because it's of my own volition. I'm not being forced to. So that's a similarity. Dissimilarities, I mean, I get to do interesting stuff doing the art of manliness. So when I was, doing the law internships, like I was just, all you do as a lawyer, a lot of people think when you're a lawyer, it's like Law and Order, right? Or where you're like at the, in the courtroom and I object. Well, no, like most lawyering, it's like you read and you write. And when you're a young attorney, it's like going through evidence and highlighting boring, it's just mind numbing work. But with the art of manliness, I do cool stuff. Like I've gotten to meet and talk to cool people. I've learned how to throw tomahawks. I've learned how to shoot guns. I've learned how to, like, anything I want to learn.
Yeah.
I have an excuse because I can write a post about it and show people how, I've gotten, speaking of mustaches, I've gotten to talk to Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
Had him on the podcast. And
erased all pictures of Ron.
Exactly. That was cool. I mean, if it weren't for the art of manliness, that I would never had that opportunity.
Oh yeah, sure. Now, with the beginning of the art of manliness, it was just you and your wife from the get-go, right?
Well, at the very, very beginning, it was just me. My wife always kind of, at the beginning, she thought blogging was kind of silly. She's like, why would you spend your time doing this? Like, you need to be in law school, study, What happened was, it was just me at the beginning, and then things started like picking up really fast. So I was like getting a lot of traffic, and it's like, man, this is crazy. And during law school finals, I asked my wife, like, look, can you help me out, write, with some content, because I've just in over my head. I got to study for finals. I got this going on. Because my wife, she's a great writer. She's a very smart, like she used to teach community college humanities at the local community college here in Tulsa. So she has a history background, has her master's, talented. So she was like, okay, sure. So she started helping me write some content. We started working together. Then she's like kind of caught the bug too. She's like, this is actually kind of fun. So we started working together on it, and that's how it happened. And
like, when did you start to grow and reach out for, I guess, guest writers or just a staff, if you will? Yes.
Well, I mean, it just happened slowly. So with guest contributors, the first one that the regular that we brought on was Antonio Centeno, and he writes all our style content on our site, and that was a fortuitous connection because I'd written a little few things about style before then, but it was like I didn't know that much about it. So to get a menswear expert on was awesome.
Yeah,
our first regular guy, and it's been fun working with him and seeing his side of his business grow as well. And then, people just started submitting guest posts that were like fans of the site and just like, hey, I'm a stuntman. Here's something about whatever. I was like, okay, cool. And then, it just sort of slowly happened. And whenever we wanted to do something else, it just seems like fate, nature, God, whatever, like just put us in touch with like cool people. So like another example is Creek Stewart. He writes a lot of our survival stuff.
Right.
He's a cool guy. He submitted this guest post for us. He's like, hey, I've been reading your site, big fan. And he's like, here's an article that I wrote just for Art of Manliness. I was like, okay. So I opened it up and it was this article about how to build a zombie apocalypse survival shotgun. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world.
Indeed.
You can find it on the site. Just Google Art of Manliness zombie shotgun.
Right.
And it went viral. It was just so cool. And he's written some other gems for us as well. He wrote a article on the survival tampon. So like
survival tampon.
Yeah. So how to use a tampon for survival. You can use it as a straw, like a filter. I use it as cotton use the cotton for fire starter. That was really cool. Another kind of cool connection. We started adding in some illustrations, some of our illustrated guides. And that came about by Ted Slampiak. He's an illustrator. He used to be the illustrator for the Little Orphan Annie comic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Before he got shut down or retired, whatever you want to call it. But he reached out to us. He said, I'm a fan of the site. And we did a So You Want My Job, like comic book artist or illustrator with him. And then a year later, we're like, hey, Ted, you want to do some illustrations for us? He's like, oh, yeah. So we started working together, and that's been a partnership we've had going for a couple of years now. So, it's just, I don't know. People come to us.
Once the momentum's gone, people just come out of the woodwork, it seems.
Forgive me, I'm still fascinated by this law thing. Part of it is I sat on a jury for 2 months at the end of 2012. So I got a unique perspective of a courtroom at that time. So forgive me if I perseverate on the law for just a little bit longer. There's a moment, not, like Moustache and Blade, we've been going for, I don't know how many months, 7 months now. So nowhere near as long as Art of Manliness. But even in that time, I can recall this one moment, and we're flying by the seat of our pants here. Doug is just like, hey, you want to start a podcast? I'm like, sure. And all of a sudden we're launching it or whatever. So it's been kind of willy-nilly. But there was this moment where I remember distinctly, I was going down to get a haircut with Craig the barber, and I was literally putting off work. And I'm a director. I direct commercials and I direct films. And I'm literally like typing the office saying, yeah, I'll have it to you this afternoon or whatever. As I'm getting in the car to go down to get a haircut from Craig the barber and record a podcast.
Yeah, we needed that interview.
And it occurred to me at that moment, I'm like, this is insane. Why am I doing this? Like, this seems like it's starting to take too much of my life. I shouldn't be making these decisions. Is there any moment in your mind where like that was the moment with law where I was like, I'm deciding for this other thing despite my better judgment?
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's the story. Okay. My story about how I got started like doing Art of Manliness full time is actually, it's a little more nuanced. So 2009, I graduated, didn't take the bar exam, and we were making enough where we can sort of eke out. I'm talking about like we were eating like rice and beans, nachos, and like spaghetti, that was like, and then like peanut butter sandwiches. Like, that was what we subsisted on. And what happened, I was, instead of like practicing law, I thought, I might as well lose my law degree. So when I was in law school, I worked for this company that does legal research. It's called Thomson Reuters Westlaw. And it's like what all the lawyers use to like research for cases, like find case law, find whatever. Anyways, I worked for them during law school as a student representative. And I, for like 6 months, I applied for openings in their academic sector. So it'd basically be me going around schools in Oklahoma, law schools in Oklahoma and Arkansas, teaching law students how to use their Westlaw's legal research service. So I was like, while I was doing the Art of Manliness, I was also applying for this corporate gig. And the reason, because like, you're like, I can do this full time, but at the same time, you're like, man, I just spent 3 years of my life, tens of thousands of dollars on this thing, and I'm not even going to use it.
Yeah.
And there's sort of like this pressure. It's like, yeah, man, it's sort of like what's the sunk cost fallacy. Like I put all this time and money into it, so I gotta use it.
Yeah.
So I did end up getting a job with this company after a year. So like I started applying in 2009 and finally got a job in 2010. And thankfully it was like in Oklahoma, didn't have to move. and started working. And that year, what happened was, so I started working there in June of 2010. Like, my wife was pregnant. We had a second book deal. So I was trying to finish up the second manuscript on this book. What else was going on? We had interest about like a TV show, and like the blog just started had this second growth spurt. And I was doing this corporate, like traveling from Tulsa to Norman, Oklahoma, and also to Fayetteville, Arkansas, doing whatever I was doing with this job. And so finally, like December, and I was also we started selling like these Art of Manliness posters, and I would spend my Fridays, like Friday nights, like after having a newborn baby, like rolling these posters and shipping them off.
Yeah.
And I was like, finally, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. No. So, I mean, after 6 months, I quit. I felt horrible. Like, I was like, cause my boss is really cool. And he's like, no, I understand. Like, I would rather you do what you're passionate about and sort of half-ass this thing that we're doing here. So go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened. So I did a lot of shoulding on myself for about a year.
Yeah.
I should, I should do this. But I mean, that's not to say, I mean, I think it's part of my nature. I'm very conservative. Like, I take risks, but I'm conservative about it. I want plan Bs. And so I always thought the corporate thing was a plan B. It's if this Art of Manliness thing doesn't work out, I got this to fall back on.
Exactly.
And it's kind of weird too, because with blogging, I don't know if you guys want to talk about this sort of thing, if it even interests your listeners, but with blogging, it's such a new type of job. Your parents, I never knew a professional blogger, right? So it's
there was no such thing up until
yeah, exactly.
this century, I guess,
yeah, the past 10 years, there weren't professional. And so it's when you're doing it, it's is this really a thing? Can I really make a living off of this? And every year we're kind of still like that. It's how long is this going to last? Is this, but you at a certain point, you just have to go full hog and just decide, yeah, enough's enough, and take that, just sort of don't give yourself a survival hatch and just go for it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm in the same boat. And it's it is such a new thing. We don't even know if it's hazardous for our health yet. That's how new it is, Where's the ceiling
Only
here?
time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. Were you passionate about law though, Brett? I mean, when you were growing up, was this your thing, or were you just?
I mean, here's the thing. I did law because I thought I would be good at it. Others told me I would be good at it. You'd be a good lawyer.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like a respectable career, It's and I didn't know any lawyers. And that was part of my biggest mistake. When I get a lot of emails from people, readers who are hey, I'm thinking about going to law school. I'm like, don't go to law school unless you really, really, really want to practice law. Because there's a lot of people who, they graduate college and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get a job. I'll go to law school. And you're like, no, that's you go to law school because you're going to be a lawyer. Yeah. And I didn't, before then I had no conception of what practicing law would be like until I actually, it was 2 years in, I was like, okay, now I know what practicing law is. And it's not for me.
No, it seems like in this country, we get rushed in so fast. We're in the rest of the world, Germany, especially. They're encouraged to travel after high school for 3 years before they make up their mind on what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. We're just pushed right into it. And you can usually tell too. I mean, practitioners, doctors, whether they have teachers, even whether they have the passion or not for this, or they pushed into it, so many of us are.
Yeah. And I'm not a big believer in I mean, I think not a big believer in the whole, you got to be passionate about it. I think, cause I asked my dad, he was a federal game warden for 30 years. And I'm like, Dad, were you passionate about this? Because it's pretty boring. I mean, he did some cool stuff, but it's kind of boring stuff. But he loved his job. And I'm like, what are you passionate? Did you always want to do this? And he's like, no, but I'm good at it. And that's why I enjoy what I do. Cause it's I know I'm having an effect on people's life, and people tell me I'm good at what I do. Yeah. And with the Art of Manliness, there's some things that I write about. I'm I'm not particularly passionate about it, topic, but I know I have a talent and a knack for conveying that information. And so I'm gonna do it. Law, I mean, it's sort of, I was good at it. I was okay at it, but I knew my talents were better served somewhere else.
Sure. Now, since the inception of the Art of Manliness, have you noticed a change in the manly consciousness, for lack of a better word, out there? I mean, do you see that happening now? Do you see that you've made a difference?
Yeah, I mean, things have definitely changed. When I started the site, as far as like, men's lifestyle content, like the only thing online you had like the big men's magazines like Esquire, Men's Health, AskMen.com.
Sure.
The really big like online play. And there weren't a lot of independent like men's, guys writing about being a guy.
Right.
And so it was really weird when I first started it. Like I was trying to when I tried to promote it, I was like, trying to explain to people, yeah, hey, I got this blog called The Art of Manliness. And like, I didn't know where to go to promote it. Right. Cause like if you're like a personal finance blogger, like if you started a personal finance blog, you had this like network of other bloggers you can go and like,
exactly.
But like with The Art of Manliness, there's like nothing there.
Right.
But since that time, like there's been an explosion of just content and for guys, but there's also been this sort of explosion in just stuff geared towards men in general. I mean, like products, businesses geared towards men, services geared towards men. Barbershops are huge.
Oh yeah.
I wrote an article in 2008, like, bringing back the barbershop or the return of the barbershop or whatever. And, it's been crazy to see since that time. I don't know if I had anything to do. I'm not hubristic to be like, yeah, it was me. But I think what happened, like, I felt like I may have like caught the beginning of a wave. Like I felt something was happening. Like something just had to give. Like I was tired of the content. I was tired of like what was put out there as for men. And I guess I think it's one of those things that a lot of other people were getting that same vibe.
Sure. It resonated with them.
And it resonated and it's hit off. So yeah, there's sort of like this whole there's been sort of like this man renaissance thing. And at one point it has gotten kind of cartoonish at times, just like, just like with the lumberjack thing.
Sure. Yeah. It becomes a caricature of itself.
Exactly.
Old Spice.
Yeah. Old Spice. I mean, Old Spice is funny. I mean,
it's funny.
It's funny. It's funny. Like their mom thing was like that. Have you seen that? Like the video about making moms cry. It's hilarious. No. I watch it and I just keep watching it over. So it's so well executed. But yeah, like it's gotten crazy, but it has gotten kind of crazy. Out of hand. I mean, one of the things with the website is people are always pitching me their products. They want to promote it on the site. And we don't really do that. Like we're not a gear review or a product focused site. So I always end up saying no, but they send me their stuff anyways. And like the stuff I get is just sort of, it gets kind of ridiculous. Because like they're trying to jump on the man thing. Like, yeah, man, manliness. So it's like, I get a lot of leather products, a lot of things made out of wood.
Oh yeah.
If it's made of wood or leather, it must be manly. And I'm like, no, do people really need this? Just sort of like the services, like underwear subscription services, like.
It's ridiculous. I got asked to review a coat hanger. Have you got that guy yet?
Yeah,
I got that too. And it's
coat hangers.
I wrote him back. I was like, I don't even know how to write a review about a coat hanger.
I mean, so in that sense, it is sort of, it's silly.
Yeah.
That's just part of the thing. So I'm curious I'm interested, me personally, I'm interested to see like where it's going to go, like in a couple of years.
Sure.
So there's like, back in like, it's like 20 years ago, there's that whole metrosexual thing. And then it became sort of like a joking, a laughing stock. And then it just kind of fizzled out. And then this whole like man thing, like Renaissance thing happened. Be curious to see what happens 5-10 years from now, because these things, like one thing I've learned researching and writing about masculinity and manhood, is that there's trends, there's cycles.
Yep.
This could be just another one. It's not going to last forever. I'm curious to see what will happen.
Sure.
My question is, where did we go wrong? It seems like at some point masculinity kind of got derailed or went invisible or something.
How did we get here?
Yeah. How did we get to the point where a site like Art of Manliness is so needed, like so desired?
Yeah. Well, it's something we've been exploring on our site, and with it's been a heavy series it's about the 3 P's of manhood. It's sort of about the anthropology of what manhood is. And the theory that we propose, and it's backed up. We provide like evidence or studies that kind of back up this theory, is that our culture, or just our society, our environment, we really don't need like manly men. We only need a few of them. Not every guy needs to be like super manly, right? Because we live in a very resource abundant, luxurious, culture. Like, I mean, you don't have to go hunt for food. I can go to Whole Foods across the street and get, bison meat.
Sure.
I don't have to be giant and brave and strong to go spear a bison by myself. The work we do doesn't require like masculine strength. Like, here we are, like I blog. I mean, it's kind of funny. I joke about it. Like I blog about manliness for a living. Like, it's not when you think about it, it's like not the most manly thing. Like I said, it's kind of embarrassing. I look at my ancestors, like on my dad's side of the family, there's like 4 generations of miners.
Yeah.
My dad was a federal game warden. Like, he went off into the woods, and confronted deer hunters who were usually drunk and had guns and giving them tickets. On my mom's side of the family, my grandfather was a forester, and like my great grandfather was a forester, and my great great grandfather was the very first forester, whatever, in the country, one of the very first. So, and then like, here's me like, oh, I blog about manliness.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like a fraud?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you kind of had that feeling, but I mean, I guess it's needed. Like there's a demand for this sort of information. So I'll gladly fill it, and I get to do cool stuff. I mean, I get to shoot guns and things like that. So
yeah,
to fill up my man card when I, but yeah, I mean, it's just like we really don't, there's a line in the Godfather. It said that men can't be careless. Women and children can be careless, but men can't be careless because it's a dangerous world. And a dangerous world. But that's how it used to be. Like, but today men can afford to be careless. Like, you can like just sit on your duff and not do much and play video games all day. And, the world's going to keep on spinning. Like, you're not going to starve probably because there's, food's abundant.
Sure.
You don't have to with online pornography and like, Skype girls, like sex is easy. I mean, it might not be actual sex, but you don't have to work that hard for it as long as you have a credit card. But before that, like you had to work hard to gain access to women. Like you had to prove that you were a good provider, and
you had to have game.
You had to have game, right? But well, even that, the whole concept like game, it's sort of like you don't. You hear that a lot with like the pickup artist stuff, but those guys, like they're kind of faking it. Like they create an image of themselves to sort of like fool women that they have those things when in fact they don't. And you can afford to do that now because you can create a persona of yourself online. And that's okay. There's no consequences, for creating that. But back then, our primal ancestors, like, Sandra in the hut next to you, like she knew cause she saw you every day, whether you were a good mate, right? If you were a lazy bum, if you could protect her and her children. So yeah, like I think everyone always talks like, what's wrong with man? What is it? It's like, it's just modern life, right? Like modern life just doesn't need masculine virile. It doesn't need it. Like we only need a few men to do that. Like for example, like the whole, like the protector role, man, that's like a universal role of manhood across cultures and across time. And it used to be in this country that everyone was expected to be like a citizen soldier, right? We were supposed to be a republic of citizen soldiers and men who could fight and defend the country. But today, like only 0.5% of the population actually serve in the military or something like that. And like of that 0.5%, like very few of them actually serve in combat.
Right.
And the reason that is because we don't need every man to be in the military. With technology, we can leverage ourselves, right?
Yeah.
There's a great line from the writer Nassim Taleb, who wrote Anti-Fragile and The Black Swan. He's like an economist. I don't know, he's not an economist. No, he wouldn't call himself an economist. He's a professor of probability. Anyways, he had this line. He said that the opposite of manliness isn't cowardice, it's technology. And I think it's like it's pretty profound. It's true.
Because it serves all the functions that men used to serve.
Exactly.
So it could be an extension then of manliness, part of the evolution of manliness, so to speak.
But yeah, I mean, we haven't come up with like a philosophy beat with that, right?
That's exactly it. Is like there's a new bar that's set. By the way, I just want to say right now, Brett, like you're blowing my mind. I've never thought of our current times from the perspective of manliness, and right now it's just like, yes, everything that you're saying is clicking. Okay, so there's this new bar that's being set, and part of it is, like Doug said earlier, we haven't lived long enough to yet know what being a professional blogger means. We haven't lived long enough to know what the internet actually, how it affects our life. So like there's this new bar being set. So like where my mind goes is like kids are being born right now who will never know life without the internet. So how much farther are they going to go? Like, where are they going to take that new bar? What's after the internet, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm old fashioned, maybe at 33, like I've already missed the train or something, but I can't project, like I can't imagine, like I'm too shackled to my flesh to project life, you know, post internet. It's too much for me.
It's impossible. Like you don't know, like you said, like, I don't think anyone thought like 15 years ago that anyone can make a living online, right? Like anyone could start a blog and they could potentially make a living.
Sure.
That just was not like even like 20 years ago, like the idea of an iPhone wasn't even on the radar. Right. So when people, I think it's funny when like futurists try to predict like, oh, this is what we're going to have. And it's like, you don't know, like, no, you don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, I don't know. What's the future of masculinity and with technology and whatnot? Nope.
Well, a question for you then, because you're obviously educated. You obviously think about these things. You research these things. I have to believe, one of the foremost scholars on the issue of masculinity in the United States. That technology has stripped the classical definition of masculinity from humans with penises. What does that mean for masculinity now? How do we define masculinity now?
So,
what conclusions have you come to?
Yeah, so I'm in the midst of writing this post. So, you know, I've read
the 3 Ps.
The 3 Ps, yeah. So like the 3 Ps, I laid out like, hey, here are the roles traditionally. And I make the case, and anthropologists and primatologists also make the case that male humans are evolved for these roles, right? Like we're evolved to be protectors, warriors, because of our, you know, we're stronger, we're faster, we have more sweat, we sweat more than women, which cools us off. Our arms are like evolved for throwing and things like that. So like we're evolved for violence and hunting. Like even the way we think is evolved for those, like, you know, violence, hunting, that sort of thing. Like we think in hierarchies, we explore more. Like they've found that when you inject monkeys with testosterone, like high levels of testosterone, they expand their perimeter of what they patrol. I'm convinced that manhood or manliness is both biological and cultural. It's not like some people will say it's just a biological thing, like what we do. It's like, that's how it is. But no. And then there's other people who say, oh, it's a cultural construct. Like it's so silly to think that manliness is something. It's just, it can be whatever you want it to be. It's like, well, no, it's a bit of both. Like cultures take these sort of innate masculine energy that men have because of testosterone and evolution. And they take that and use that and create a culture of manhood that benefits that particular culture, even though there's like general similarities amongst all of them. So yeah, generally men are the warriors, though there sometimes be women that fight, but those are the exceptions. Men are often expected to be the hunters and go out and, you know, provide the meat. And then in the protector and the provider, the procreator role, men are expected to be the pursuers in the relationship across cultures. So there's something inside of us, you know, that's evolved there. So like what I'm trying to, with this article that I'm writing now, is like, okay, how do we provide outlets for that in our modern world with technology? One case could be made, well, what you do is you have to just basically eliminate civilization, right? And then you'll have an outlet for your masculine energy and all this sort of innate biological evolved masculinity. It's like, well, that would suck. Like I don't want like my life to be like the novel The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Oh God. Yeah.
But there's some people out there, like that's their dream. That's their fantasy.
Yeah.
So, but it's like,
that's
how do you,
the zombie apocalypse thing.
Yeah, exactly.
An expression of that. Yeah.
I think it's definitely an expression of that. And so I make the case that, you know, it's possible to sort of scratch that itch we have for like that kind of virile, visceral masculinity that I think not all men, but I think most men feel while living in our modern world. And it's sort of kind of like that, I guess it's very similar to like the paleo approach to like, you know, eating and exercise. Like you don't like actually eat like a caveman, like, or live like a caveman, but like you find things you can do that are similar, like that kind of line up with what we're evolved. So you eat like, you want to eat like what we're evolved for. So, you know, what I would propose is like, you know, I mean, it's sort of just basic stuff like exercise, find competition. Instead of like living your masculinity like vicariously through video games or through television, like actually do that. Like, you know, instead of watching football all day Saturday, like get a bunch of guys together and play football. Or instead of like playing Call of Duty with your friends over the internet on Xbox Live, like go to a gun class and like learn how to fire a gun, right? And learn some basic self-defense. other things you could do, just like learning how to be self-sufficient. I mean, just like actually doing that stuff. Like don't make masculinity this abstraction. Find ways that you can actually make it concrete in your life every day. And it doesn't have to be big things.
Sure. Just to play devil's advocate for a second, if we aren't living with this in scarcity anymore, why do we need to hold on to this? Like, why do we need to hold on to the appendix anymore if it's no longer needed? It's like holding on to something that we don't need.
That's a great question. I mean, my argument would be like, I feel more fulfilled when there's some sort of outlet there, right? As a man.
Right.
I understand, like, people are like, oh, there's not that much of a difference. There isn't much of a difference between men and women. Like the genetic difference is like minuscule, but that small difference can make a big difference, right?
Sure.
As far as interest and taste and, you know, how we live our lives. So I would say you need that outlet because it's going to go somewhere, right? And so you want it to go in sort of pro-social directions or anti-social directions. Because like when there isn't like an outlet, like a pro-social outlet, you know, what people, like boys join gangs, they do risky things that are just like stupid, right? They're not,
right.
I mean, I'm all for risk because like risk is like what creates opportunities. Yeah. But like they'll go out, you know, they'll do stupid stuff with like fast cars and like, you know, trying to film themselves so they can get on Tosh 2.0, right? Type of stuff. Like I don't want my
planking.
Yeah, I don't want my son to do that. I want him to take risks, but I want him to take risks that are actually beneficial for himself,
right?
Our culture. So I would say, yeah, I mean, the reason there'd be a benefit because there's something there. So if you don't provide an outlet for it, it's not going to go away. So you might as well provide a pro-social outlet for it.
Okay.
So these things all fall into the heading of the cultivation of the body, perhaps.
Yeah.
Things you can do with your body. But one of the things I identify with the art of manliness is there's a deep strain of education in terms of cultivation of the mind or manners.
Sure. Creating
men of character. Mm-hmm. One of the things that popped out to me the most actually are the posters that are on cell phone etiquette. And you know, if I were to make posters on cell phone etiquette, it would be like, hey, dumbass, stop being a jerk. It would say something like that, and that wouldn't be effective. No, your posters are well thought out. They're well phrased. They're actually designed and presented to educate and create men with manners. Can you talk a little bit about the role, you know, what manliness means in those spheres?
Sure. So with the whole etiquette thing, I mean, yeah, men are if they're not if we're kind of left to our own devices, I think men just kind of, I mean, we kind of take the path of least resistance. I know what I do. Just what men are like when there's like not women or children around is often just sort of just like, yeah, you're like, hey, dumbass, you know, and like you use different type of language, you're rougher, you're just kind of crude, which is fine. I think is okay. Like when you're with guys, I love doing that. Right.
Yeah.
But to make, I guess that doesn't make for good society. And so, yeah, like, you know, those kind of social graces, it's sort of like the lubrication. It's like, yeah, it's societal, lubrication, makes things run a little bit smoother. So yeah, I think that's an important part of, you know, being effective in the world as a man and as women, but I think men need a little more help on it. Cause again, I would say that we're sort of biologically, I don't want to like play the hand that like, oh yeah, men are evolved for this. And like, you know, you can get kind of bonkers with that sort of stuff, but yeah, we tend to be a little more gruffer and boisterous and whatnot. So you need something, some sort of culture, some sort of etiquette, some sort of guidelines that take that and direct it towards something, again, pro-social, positive and constructive. So yeah, manners is a part of that. I mean, we talk about developing character. And when we talk about the character stuff, one critique people always bring up is like, well, you know, like being, you know, women can be, you know, virtuous as well. Like it's true. You know, like these things are like human attributes, human virtues. They apply to both sexes. We just make the case that, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know, how would you say? It's like different notes on a piano. Like they all sound pretty, but like when men do it, it kind of comes off of a different tone. When women do it, it comes off something else. And that's okay. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm trying to like
reaching for an analogy. No, it sounds, I get it. I get what you're saying. So we can pretty much blame all of this state of manliness or lack thereof on British 70s glam rock for the most part. Is that what we're getting at?
Wait, I wouldn't say specifically British 70s glam rock.
But David Bowie is what we're getting at. I mean,
yeah, no, I mean,
I'm sorry.
I think it's just modern life in general. And like, There's just not life now does not demand that much from men in particular, but just, it's people in general. So if you want to like be a man, right? If you want to sort of like that traditional kind of like John Wayne, James Bond, like if you want to be that kind of masculine man, you have to make that choice and you have to actively pursue it. That's the thing. Like before, like you had no choice, like you had to do it.
Right.
Or else you would die. You would not reproduce. But now it's like you have the luxury of not. So, but if you want to experience that, you get to choose.
Right. Well said.
I don't spend all my days thinking about masculinity.
I try not to, and it's you don't
Good
want
luck
to.
there.
I tell you, you don't want to, or you'll go crazy.
But what I wanted to say was what little thinking I have done. Well, it's not been a little thinking. What thinking I have done about masculinity. I'm married as well. I've been married for 7 years now. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to grow up? How do I become an adult? And thinking about and wrestling with those questions. And one of the conclusions I've come to is being a man means making decisions and sticking with them.
Yeah.
And what you just said right now is an even deeper meaning to that statement is no, you actually have to decide to be a man as well. That's the first decision that's made. And then you continue to make decisions thereafter and stick with them. So interesting.
That's hard. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, if you look at ancient cultures and like sort of hunter-gatherer tribes, like there's no choice. Like you are going to go through that rite of passage because it's important for the tribe that you do, because the tribe needs you to be a man, right? And do all the things that a man does. And in our large nation state, consumeristic, industrial, techno world, like we don't need every man to step up because we have technology that can do a lot of that stuff. So, if you want to experience that, you got to choose yourself. It's not going to be foisted upon you.
Proactive.
You got to be proactive.
Well, yeah, it's very true. In our society, we don't have these rituals and rites anymore. We don't know when we're supposed to be a man sometimes. Back in the day, it was when you were 13 all around the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they take you out into the woods and whatnot. We don't have these rituals anymore. We don't have, it's all been watered down if we do.
My dad is an educator. He was in public schools for 35 years and he was with 7th graders. And one of his specialties, he has his PhD and all that, like he studies youth, and development. One of the things he discovered is that adolescence used to be the time from when you started puberty to when you got married. That was what the term adolescence meant.
Wow.
And that used to be just a few years, 3 or 4 or 5 years. And now adolescence is like several decades long. People are starting puberty earlier. God knows why. Maybe online porn, like McDonald's French fries, like who knows the
hormones injected into meat.
And not getting married until into their 30s. And so this like prolonged, adolescence is surely causing bad habits for men to be proactive and to decide to, start taking responsibility and making decisions for their life.
Yeah. Completely agree with that.
Yeah. It's a backlash of I guess, technology, or just where we're at. Everything happens so fast, and here we are. And we're just all trying to make sense of it and catch up to it, I guess. But to get a little less deep for our listening audience,
perhaps maybe skin level at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that where you're going?
I'm interested in your wet shaving, Brett.
Yeah.
This is Mustache and Blade. We cover wet shaving mostly. That's the majority of our topics here. And I know a lot of our listeners out there, a lot of them have probably turned on to wet shaving thanks to one of your articles from a few years back, How to Shave Like Grandpa, right?
Yeah. How to Shave Like a Grandpa. That was like the very first article we published on the site.
Yeah. So tell us, do you shave like Grandpa, and how do you shave like Grandpa? What do you use? What's your tools of choice there?
Yeah. So my tool of choice, I usually use a safety razor. It's actually my grandpa's safety razor. It's a Gillette. Is it a Gillette or a Schick? Sometimes it's a Gillette. It's like I got a black plastic handle.
Oh yeah.
But my first safety razor was one I found at this antique store in Vermont. One of like a Gillette Super Speed or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It
was awesome. I'd been shaving with it for a while, since 2004 or 5.
Nice.
And loved it. Loved the whole ritual, getting the brush and whatnot. So that's what I use regularly. What I usually use is my grandpa's safety razor, because it's just for sentimental reasons. Doesn't give the best shave. I need to go back to the all metal Gillette, and then I'll use a straight razor every now and then. I mean, honestly, I don't have the patience for it. Like, it's such a steep learning curve. And like,
yes, it is.
the thing with it is like, I have such prolonged spaces from like the time I use them. Like when I use it again, I'm like, okay, how do I do this again? Like, it's not, always feel awkward. You have to relearn it.
Yep.
But yeah, whenever I'm like, want to treat myself, I'll bust out it's my great grandfather's, from the 1880s.
Nice.
Yes.
Love it.
So yeah, the whole shave like grandpa is just sort of talking about why you should shave like grandpa, because it's cheaper. It's just a more ritualistic shave. It's a better shave. And that's taken off like gangbusters. It's funny. A few weeks or about a month ago, I thought it'd be fun to use one of like the Gillette Fusions again.
God.
It had been like,
Ryan did that too.
7 years. I was like, maybe is it as bad as I said it was, and like, or I thought it was, and I used it, and like I had the worst like razor bumps. It was just all over my just like red bumps. My wife was like, "What did you do to your face?" Like and it was the Fusion. I mean, it was like it was nice. Like it was like really easy. It was like super fast.
Yeah,
kind of cool. But then the after effects just did not look pretty.
Yes. Yeah.
There's apparently something in the air again, because I just did this as well.
Yeah.
I hadn't picked it up for so long, but I never had problems. I don't know if you do, Brett, but like I never had problems with irritation or bumps or razor burn or anything, whether I was using the Pro Glide or, I used to use the Rolls razor when I was in high school. I inherited it from my, great uncle or whatever. I never had big problems with that. And I actually found the Pro Glide was like, wow, that's not as bad a shave as I have like filed it away in my mind as, like that was okay. And it was pretty quick too.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that great. So I had to go back. And then another thing I did too, I got to do the write up on it, but last year, I experimented with electric razors because like I had one when I was like, 15. And I remember it just sucked, just like, just like chewed up my face. And I was like, technology must have gotten better in 15 years. And in some ways it has, like, there's like these little gizmos, like, self-cleaning things, but like the actual shaving experience, it still sucks. It still feels exactly the same, but like I bought like the top, I went all out and I bought the top of the line. Cause I wanted to make sure like, okay, if I'm going to, just totally obliterate and just talk about how this sucks, I want to make sure it's like, I'm getting the best of the best and saying, yeah, I paid $300 for this thing and it still sucked. Right. Yeah, and it still sucked. I mean, I stopped using it.
Yeah, no, it just pulls it right out. Oh man.
But you think, after, but like, but they've added all these gizmos, like these like self-cleaning things and
bells and whistles. Bells and whistles.
Yeah, but like the actual shaving, it's like it's the exact same technology.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing.
You brought up The Godfather. I'm wondering what other movie titles or quotes from movies, come up often at the Art of Manliness. I mean, like off the top of my head, I'm just like, what makes a man, Mr. Lebowski? I mean, that one comes right to mind for me. I'm wondering though, like what ones, come across your desk most often?
Oh, people don't send me movie quotes, but like one that I've been thinking about, like talking about manners and gentlemanliness and being a man. There's a great, one of my favorite movies is a John Wayne movie called McClintock. If you haven't checked it out, it's hilarious. But he has this line where John Wayne says, you have to be a man before you can be a gentleman. And he's talking about some guy, and that guy's neither. So I think it's a cool line. If you want to like be a gentleman, you have to be a man. Because like gentlemanliness doesn't mean anything unless you are a man.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there who are like into the whole, I'm a gentleman, right? But like, they're just a nice human, right? If it weren't, I mean, even they're not frightening. Like that's the thing about what makes a gentleman is that as a man you're sort of frightening and brooding. You can like do harm to women or children or whatever, but you choose not to. You refine. You actually comport yourself differently because you want to be a gentleman. So, and it's always funny. Like there's always more meaning whenever like a kind of a rough and badass dude is shows some etiquette. He's like you're like, oh, that is a gentleman. Yeah. It means more, right? Because like
contrast.
He could kill you or whatever, but he chooses not to and actually treats you with a lot more respect. But so, yeah, if you want to be a gentleman, you have to be a man first.
That's a good
one. That's a good one.
And with that, can you tell us just briefly a little bit about John L. Sullivan and what he means to you, the Boston strong boy?
So that's a funny story. So the way John L. Sullivan became the mascot of the the icon or logo of the Art of Manliness was when I was kind of conceptualizing the site. I was like, I want an old time boxer with a handlebar mustache to be on the header image. And like, I'll be honest, I didn't know who John L. Sullivan was at the time. So what I did,
he's a Boston boy like me.
yeah, I mean, all I did was Google, 19th century old time boxer with handlebar mustache.
Sure, got the image.
John L. Sullivan came up. I was like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
But through the time, I've learned more about him. He's an interesting character. There's actually a great biography that just came out about John L. Sullivan called Boston Strong Boy. And he is just a really great, just a perfect, he encapsulates so much about American masculinity, both the good and the bad, just sort of this rough and tumble, just represents sort of that raw masculinity, right? Just like
the quintessential,
and just beat the hell out of people. I'm John L. Sullivan and I can lick any son of the bitch in the house. He just had that sort of bravado.
Yeah.
But he had his flaws. He was an alcoholic. It was a big problem in his life. He was a racist. Like he would never fight a black fighter, because he was racist, and like many men in the 19th century. But in the biography, he kind of talks about how he sort of redeems himself a bit. Like he gets on the wagon, settles down, actually kind of adopts a local boy with his wife, and kind of becomes a gentleman farmer. But he's an interesting guy, like just super, like everyone. Yeah. But when people see John or any type of old time boxer, they're like, oh, it's The Art of Manliness.
Right. Now, I remember hearing your interview on your podcast with the author of that, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Well, before we part ways, could you tell us a little about the podcast, Brett, for our listeners to check out as well?
Yeah, so I got a podcast, do it once a week, and it's an interview-based podcast. I try to get interesting folks on the who are doing or writing about things that Art of Manliness people would be interested in or would improve their lives. And I try to make them like interviewers or guests that can like provide like practical, useful information for guys to take away after listening. So I've had, but then every now and then I'll do kind of fun ones. So I've talked to Nick Offerman about Parks and Recreation and his mustache. That was sort of like the fun one. But I've talked to experts on etiquette, on just the whole field of masculinity. I've talked to style experts. I've talked to all sorts of people. So yeah. Art of Man. You can find that on SoundCloud.
Yes. And it's on iTunes as well, right? It's pretty much on all those.
It's on Stitcher. It's on all of them.
And on your site as well. Yeah, no, it's great. It's half an hour long, I believe.
Try to keep about half an hour long.
Yeah, we don't. Where else can our listeners find you, Brett, besides at artofmanliness.com?
That's the place, man. That's where we'd love to have you. And you can pull up a glass of whiskey or non-alcoholic beverage of your choice, and, sip and read articles and learn about being a man.
Yes. Excellent. Well, we'd like to just thank you so much for joining us today, Brett. It's really been a pleasure, and it's been very eye-opening and thought-provoking for, I know, myself, Ryan, and our listeners.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, you guys asked some great questions. Usually I get asked the dopiest questions, but you guys were awesome.
Thank you so much for saying that, Brett. That's very important to me.
Well, it's important to me too. Like I try to spend a lot of time coming up with questions for because like most people, like when they do podcasts, they're just like, I feel like they don't even like try. They're just like, try, put some effort into it.
Yeah,
totally.
You guys did a good job.
We have a responsibility, and we try to ask the tough questions.
Just tell me now,
exactly.
Brett. Is manliness even needed?
Yeah. Sorry I went there. But thank you again, Brett.
That was great.
We'll get you back on it hopefully sometime in the future. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier now that we know each other a little bit better.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent. Thank you again.
All right. Best of luck with the podcast, guys. Take care.
That was good. That was epic. Okay.
You have been listening to the Moustache and Blade podcast. Thanks for listening, and please leave us a review on iTunes. Almost clean shaven, but hardly clean cut. Moustache and Blade.